Hello, Warm World History students. This is Mr. Maloney, and we are on to day number 2 of the Cold War PowerPoint. Hope you're all doing well. Hopefully everybody's staying safe and healthy right now during these trying times. Mr. Glazer left off here at the beginning of the Cold War, so he built it up to where there's U.S. and the Soviet Union as the two world superpowers now, as the rest of the world is emerging from World War II and they're trying to get out of ruin. So here the Cold War begins 1945 to 1991 between the United States and Soviet Union. There was a continuing state of tension between the United States and Soviet Union. They had differing views politically, socially, and economically, one being democratic and with a lot of freedom, one being communist and repressing people's freedom, so taking it away from them. We're going to see the spread of satellite nations of the Soviet Union. So we're going to see the spread of communism in Eastern Europe. So like countries like East Germany, Czechoslovakia, Poland, a lot of countries that are between Germany and the Soviet Union in Eastern Europe are going to become communist little satellites of the Soviet Union. So they'll be little allies for them as a buffer zone and to help them, in their mind, prevent future wars, because the last two wars came from Germany attacking from that region. The USSR set its sights on Turkey and Greece and wanted them to be a part, and that's where the United States is going to get involved here. So here's a map right here that shows, you see kind of like the dark red is the Soviet Union, and the lighter pinkish red right there is these states that they've taken over as part of, like, they'll be the Warsaw Pact nations that we're going to learn about a little bit later. But they're the ones that got gobbled up as parts of the Russian sphere. So the United States, to counter the movement of the Soviet Union trying to further their aggression and to take over more of Europe, came up with a plan to try to get these countries to not go the direction of the USSR. So the Truman Doctrine, named after President Harry Truman, is basically the first step. So the Truman Doctrine was the stuff that the words and everything behind it, and the Marshall Plan is going to be the money behind it. So the Truman Doctrine is the U.S. They say, basically, Truman says it's the U.S.'s duty to help other nations resist Soviet aggression. Example, communism. So based on the theory of containment, so like think about a fire. If you have a really, really big fire and you can't stop the fire, say it's a forest fire, maybe you can wet down all of the trees where it hasn't got to yet, and you can contain it. We might not be able to stop the damage that it's doing where it's at, but we can set a boundary maybe and stop it from going any further. So the theory of containment is like the attempt to limit communism and its expansion throughout the world. The U.S. is going to send aid to Greece and Turkey to stop the USSR from trying to get them into their sphere. All right, and here's a political cartoon. It's basically showing a wall going up here. So basically a wall goes through Europe here, Eastern Europe. Allies become enemies. So obviously the Soviets and the Americans and the people in Western Europe, they were on the same side in World War II. But now that the war has ended, now that we're seeing a divide between communism and democracy. So those nations emerged from friends to try to stop the Nazi takeover of the world. And then now they're not getting along again when the war ended. So Soviets build a buffer zone. Now, they didn't really build an Iron Curtain. So this curtain is there as more of an anomaly. You know, it's a saying, like it was the boundary of communism and democracy. So everything to the east of the Iron Curtain is going to be communist, and everything in the west is going to be democratic. So in 1946, Stalin says capitalism and communism cannot coexist in the world. And eventually we're going to find out that that's probably true, as there's no more communist countries. You know, there's a couple left in the world today. You got China, but China, their economy is not communist their government is, but it's just a form of totalitarian rule there. Um, so really, communism, it grew a little bit and then it's kind of dying out. Who knows? In these next 100 years, we'll see what happens. Iron Curtain divides East and West. So now we see this next map right here. The one, you see the little red line that divides it, and then you'll see the green colored countries. They're the communist countries. But the dark green, Yugoslavia, is actually a communist nation, but they're not on the side of the Soviet Union, so to speak. So they don't join the Warsaw Pact or anything. So they actually are a communist country, but they actually trade with both sides and become independent during the Cold War. United States goals: containment. They wanted to stop the spread of communism. The Truman Doctrine supports countries that reject communism. So if you reject communism and you stay democratic, we are going to go to the next level. We're going to instill the Marshall Plan. So if you agree to not be a communist, we're going to give you money. So it's a program of assisting Western European countries. So if you do that, then we're going to give you money. And those countries needed money after World War II because Europe was decimated. So for regrowth, their economies were ruined. They were disasters. So that helped fix it. So the Marshall Plan comes in. It's a massive economic aid package to Europe after World War II, designed to help in rebuilding and resisting communism. It's the opposite of Treaty of Versailles. Instead of blaming somebody and making them pay, we're going to throw money at these countries to try to rebuild and revitalize in hopes that future wars won't have to be fought, that these people will not be in dire straits, that they need to go resort to fighting and taking from other people. The ultimate thing is that this was offered to everybody in the world, not just Europe. We offered it to everybody basically who was a part of this war, but only Western Europe countries took this aid. So all of those Eastern European countries could have taken it, like Poland or Czechoslovakia or any of those. They could have took it, but they did not take it. So here are the Marshall Plan expenditures. As you can see, some countries got way more money than others. Like look at France and Britain. Obviously, they're the most decimated of them all. Italy gets a little bit, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of money that was doled out to these countries. And this graphic right here shows you how much in millions of dollars that was given to each of these countries. So the United States dumped a lot of money into the European economy after World War II to help rebuild these countries, because obviously these are the people we're going to need to sell stuff to in order to rebuild our economy and get our economy going worldwide. And then here's just another political cartoon type of thing here. Whatever the weather, we must move together. So those are like our allies and NATO nations. These Eastern European countries were creating their own communist thing, and these Western European countries kind of fearful of the Soviets, and they kind of got an alliance here to stay together. So we're going to see a crisis in Germany out of this. So this crisis in Germany is Britain, France, and the United States combined their zones in Germany. They were all democratic, and the Soviet Union kept communism in their sector. So what happened is in Germany, it gets broken into 4 sectors. So if you think about it, just draw yourself, if you got a piece of paper out there, draw a big plus sign for the most part. Draw a plus sign, make it like a square. So you got 4 little boxes, and just put in the upper left corner, put Britain. In the upper right hand corner, put the Soviet Union. In the lower left corner, put France. And in the lower right corner, put the United States. And basically, you could color in the Soviet Union area red. And then the other 3 boxes are like adjoined there. And those 3 are actually going to be Western Germany. And the red little square that you created is going to be Eastern Germany. That's going to be communist. The other 3 are going to work together, make one country out of it. It's going to be a democratic nation. It's going to be West Germany and East Germany. Then they even, like Berlin is the capital city of Germany. This is hard to understand because Berlin is actually smack dab in Soviet territory in East Berlin, or in East Germany. The capital city for both is going to be broken up into 4 sections as well. So take that plus sign again, and you've got 4 areas of Berlin, the capital city. And then they're going to actually break those down, and part of the city is going to be communist and part of it's not. Eventually, they're going to build a wall right through the middle here and surrounding the city so that the democracy part cannot get to that part. So eventually, the Soviets, Berlin's in the middle of East Germany. So in order to get there, you got to drive through Eastern Germany to get to your capital, which is in another area, in another country, basically. So the Soviet Union decided in 1948 to close all land routes to Berlin, hoping to make the Allies leave. So it's a blockade. A blockade could be an act of war. So we came up to those blockades and we turned around. We didn't want to be forced away and be forced into a war. So in order to avoid a war here, we decided to do the Berlin airlift. We were not going to lose the communism here. So the West dropped food and supplies by using airdrops for over a year. They were bringing in food, and eventually the Soviets said, "Screw this! We're not gonna sit here and blockade forever." So they opened up the route to where they could drive in now. So the blockade ended. Berlin was divided between West and East. So the West was democratic, the East was communist, and the Soviet Union built the Berlin Wall in 1961. And here is how the airdrops went. So you could see from the free areas over there, they took their planes, they came into the city there, they dropped the food, and they came back down that middle there. So they're bringing in supplies and food and everything to help their fellow Germans. And here's them filling up these giant aircraft with supplies that they could drop to the people. There's people happy to see the people coming in, dropping in their food because they really needed it. These people were kind of trapped in this city, so it made it, they were scared. This was scary times in the world here. And people didn't know what was going to happen, if we were going to jump right into another war or not. Cover of Time magazine, building of the wall. Eventually, starts off as a fence. They put up a fence in the middle of the night. There they are constructing and erecting it. Eventually became a true wall. We'll learn more about that. We talk about the fall of the Berlin Wall, one of the greatest parties in the history of the world, or when they took down the wall. People from all over the world came there to celebrate the freedom, but that's not going to be for a long time here. So 1961, building of the Berlin Wall right here. And there's JFK standing at the Berlin Wall right there. He makes a speech right there, looking over the wall, looking at the communist side, and you can see all the barbed wire and all the protection. There's people over there, probably some troops with guns. They would shoot people trying to escape. They would harm their own people trying to get out of there. That's how bad it was, that people, if they tried to leave, they would die. They would try to kill them. Opposing military alliances. NATO, the NATO alliance was the Western European countries, plus the United States and Canada, in a mutual defensive alliance, all these democracies. We are still in this today with our European allies. The Warsaw Pact was a Soviet alliance with Eastern Europe. All the communist nations were aligned. So the United States created NATO, this NATO alliance, and then the Soviets countered by creating the Warsaw Pact. And NATO stands for North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Here's the map, shows all the Warsaw Pact nations. This whole red part of the map is, but remember that the red part that you're looking at straight away right here, all of this part right here, this is just the Soviet Union. That's how massive and large it is. But for the main part, everything above this arrow I'm drawing right here is frozen, like Siberia. It's really cold up there. So yeah, not a lot of people living up there. There's the map of Europe right here. So you can see this map of Europe here. You've got on the left side, the blue is going to be your NATO nations. And the right side, the red, is going to be your Warsaw Pact nations. that's it for today's PowerPoint. Hopefully, you guys getting your work done, doing it in the study guide. And if you have any questions, as always, email me. If you're in my class, if you're in Mr. Glazer class, email Mr. Glazer. And everything's on our website. We would like you to log into Schoolage. You can get all your work from there every week. That's the plan of attack. So if you have any questions, just contact us via email. Hopefully, you guys have a great day.